Well, hi, hello, and how are you doing out there in internet land? My name is Brian Trippett. I am the Front Porch Conservative, and welcome to Front Porch Brunch, a fun little live stream we do. Yes, I know. Yes, I know. I'm late. I'm sorry. I just geekats. Anyway, welcome to Front Porch Brunch, a little live stream we do on the weekends, trying to make sense out of this crazy thing we call life. And have a good time doing it. So my name is Brian Trippett. I am known as the Front Porch Conservative. And good to have you guys here with us this morning as you settle into your chairs on the electronic front porch. Hopefully you brought a snack to nosh on, something to drink it down with. We're going to have a kind of an abbreviated live stream this morning, but one with a purposeful theme. Anyway, my name is Brian Trippett. I am the Front Porch Conservative. I am sometimes known as the fine fella in the fedora. Sometimes I'm known as the chap in the cap. On occasion, I'm called the common man with common sense. But in this moment, as always, I am your host. We are on Rumble, we are on Twitter, and we are on that quaint little alternative social media platform known as YouTube. So please do me some favors. If you're not subscribed to my channel, go ahead and do so. Also, while you're at it, hit the thumbs up button, leave a comment in chat, share the link around with your friends, and hit the bell for notifications. Let's make sure you're always aware when new things are going on this fun little channel. Oh my goodness. All right, let's see who is in the house this morning. TBA and WWG1, the OG Wingnuts are already in place. Good morning to you, gentlemen. Fist bumps in your general directions. Let's see who else is here this fine morning. Adam, one of our favorite crazy Canadians, is in the house. Good morning, and a fist bump to you, sir. Kawan's in the house. 38 trillion dollars in debt. And I've heard of a really wild scheme how we're supposedly going to get rid of all that. I think it's nuts, but anyway. Good morning, Miss Lana. Mwah. And then Kawan, a fist bump to you. There you go. All right, who else is here, y'all? Let's see who's in the house. Let's see. Hello to WWG1. Good morning, sir. Glad to have you here with us. Let's see. I think that might cover every. Good morning, Miss Gypsy. Glad to have you here, darling. Good to see everybody here this morning. Glad to have all you here in the house. Oh my goodness indeed. So much to talk about. I've got a whole series of things to get into this morning, but there's one overarching theme more than anything else. And if you saw the title to my live stream, I think you're going to understand where I'm going with this once we start getting into some of these news items, which it's kind of we're going to be doing something of a mix this morning because, scanning the news, there's a lot of things going on, but they all seem to be one-sided. But I think you'll understand what I'm getting at here shortly. So excuse me as I sip on some tea for a moment. Lubricate the old windpipes, as it were. And we'll get this party started. All right. We'll start, as we are wont to do, with our friends who've given us the memes. Not the mumps, the memes. The memes are fun. The memes are interesting. The memes are meant to make us think. And with that, we'll dive right in. We've been talking about the election for mayor up in New York City, and some people sit there and go, well, why are you so focused on this? I mean, look, you live in West Virginia. What happens in New York City isn't going to affect you. Well, in one sense, that's absolutely true. In another sense, New York City is still part of America. I still care about what happens in my country, even though it may not be something that affects me with immediate geographic consequence. So I'm a little concerned about what's going on up there. And as you might expect, people are contemplating, what does it mean if this guy, Zamdani, gets elected in New York City? What does it do to the average life of the average New Yorker? Well, somebody came up with a pretty good political cartoon, which actually makes sense if you stop and think about it. With that in mind, I ask you to take a look at the following because I think you'll get quite the kick out of this. And it goes a little something like this. Guy walks up to a bagel counter in New York City, and the lady behind the counter said, "I dropped the kids off at free childcare, took a free bus ride here for my $38 an hour job. Thank you." Oh, that's the mayor. Oh, well, the mayor's getting a bagel. Isn't that great? And then the lady gets to inform him that it'll all cost him $130 for the coffee, and you can select your tip right here. Uh, yeah, the law of unintended consequences. Yeah. Sadly, I think you're right, TBA. I really do. I don't think New Yorkers quite, I mean, look, there is still time. We're down to what is it? 7, 8, 9. About 9 or 10 days left till the election. Okay. I mean, anything could still happen. Stranger and polls have always been wrong. But I tell you this much. If what's shaping up is getting ready to happen, New Yorkers are in for one of the rudest awakenings. If he actually goes balls to the wall, if he goes actual balls to the wall and does a lot of the stuff he's been talking about, man, this is going to get bad in New York City. But the worst part about it, the worse than that, is New York City is going to be on its way to becoming London, England. And if you don't know what I mean, go take a look at what's going on across the pond. They've got a mayor over there, Sadiq Khan. And let me tell you something. That dude is bad news. Goodness me, goodness me. Who? Oh, Mr. Scott Awesome is in the house. Hello, sir. You are the GOAT. You are the GOAT, sir. We're glad to have you in the house. Dave H has rolled on in. Good morning, everyone. Listening to the best YouTuber for a long drive. Well, thank you very much. I genuinely appreciate that. Genuinely appreciate that. It's very kind of you, sir. Very kind indeed. Well, but see, here's the problem with that. I mean, you might be right. You might be absolutely right. Okay. But, and this is something that Kit Cabello and I were talking about a couple last Saturday, I think. There are going to be people. There are going to be people in New York City who, bless their hearts, they can't leave, either because of family. You know, their kids are there. Maybe they're going to school. They don't want to disrupt that, which that's understandable. Or maybe for economic, or, you know, maybe they've got an older family member there. You know, they got to take care of their mom, their dad, a sick uncle, a sick aunt, who knows? Or matters of economics. Maybe they just financially are not able to leave. You know, they're middle income or lower income, middle class, and they just can't get the money together to get out of New York. They're going to be stuck. They're going to have to put up with this guy. So I don't know, man. I mean, I think some people are going to get out, but I don't think nearly as many as you might think. And the professor is in the house this morning. Good morning, Front Porch and friends. Listening to this as I sip my morning coffee and plot out the rest of my day. Well, let me tell you something. The plottings of Christian Watson sometimes are better than most people running around in the world. So let me tell you, if you're not following Christian Watson's channel, check that young man out. Give him a sub on YouTube. Give him a follow on Twitter. Anywhere that guy goes, check out what he's got to say. You may not always agree with him, but he's going to make you think. And that, in these days, is a much needed thing. So to the professor, we lift our cups. All right. So what else have we got in the way of the merry memes this morning? Yes. You know, a lot of people are trying to figure out. Well, wait a minute. I'm going to save that one. Hold on a minute. I should have shifted that down to. Yeah, I'm going to save that one for right there. That'd be a good spot for it. Okay. Hold on just a moment. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. Had to do a rip. Whoa. Stop it. Yeah, technical difficulties. What am I going to tell you? Anyway, A lot of people try to figure out, how does Donald Trump do it? And what I mean by that is this. This guy gets about 3 on a good night, I guess maybe 5 hours of sleep on a good night. Most times he's getting 3 to 4 hours of sleep. How does this guy do it? Not just the job, not just everything else, but how does this guy manage to look at 78 or 79 years old? How does this guy manage to look as good as he does? Well, sources inside the White House are leaking out Trump's morning routine. Now, if you have not seen this yet, ladies and gentlemen, I ask you to consider. So, if you really want to know how Donald Trump goes day to day on 3 or 4 hours of sleep, doing the job that he does, but looking as good as he does doing it, well, we've got Trump's daily morning routine for you, and it goes something like this. All right, and there you go, folks. That is how Donald Trump is doing it. Man, little did we know that all that effort went into making Donald Trump look like he does first thing in the morning when he starts getting it done. Yeah. Now wait a minute. Hold on a minute. Okay, the yard work I understand. That's cool. And Mrs. TBA, wait a minute. And Mrs. TBA wants you to go grocery shopping. Lord help me. Wait, what's so bad about going grocery shopping with Mrs. TBA? I mean, come on now. I mean, I think that's a good couples building activity. I mean, there you guys are. You're walking around the grocery store together. You're walking up and down the aisles. You're shopping together. It's an opportunity for the two of you to talk. You're out in public. I mean, this is a good thing. Why are you giving it the Lord help me thing? Well, okay. Now that I'll give you that point. I'll give you that one. Okay. But still, all right. Okay. But still, I would argue it's still a more positive activity than not. So just perspective, my friend. Perspective. Well, look, in this crazy world in which we have, where everybody is getting pulled in 1,000 different directions all at once, it's hard for couples, married or even unmarried, to find ways to spend time together. I would argue respectfully that the occasional trip to the grocery store is just a good opportunity to, is a good opportunity for people, to find ways to spend time together. On the other hand, Gypsy is making an argument. Maybe it's better to shop alone. Everybody has a different opinion in these matters. I'm not saying, but I'm just saying. Hold that thought, Kawan, because we're got a line of conversation I want to get into, and you're kind of hitting on something that we're going to be talking about this morning. So hold that thought, my friend. Hold that thought. So anyway, all right. What else do we have in the way of the merry memes? Yes. I found something today, and I don't know much about the party that posted this on Twitter, but I thought this was absolutely hysterical. And I think the poster, the person who tweeted this, is absolutely right. If you want something that rather explains quickly the relationship between the various parties in the Middle East, and a real quick synopsis about what's going on, or more to the point, how we have gotten to this situation. Well, folks, this one's actually funny and pretty cool at the same time. A quick primer on current situations in the Middle East via Warner Brothers. Check this out. Okay, now first of all, I'm old enough to remember that cartoon, as I'm sure some people in this audience may be as well. But I saw that and I went, you know, that's probably coming from someone's unique perspective. But the more I think about it, the more I think that is absolutely correct. As a matter of fact, it's so good, I'm willing to play it again. One more time, please. Like I said, folks, that one is funny in so many different ways. Yet at the same time, at the same time, it's pretty daggone accurate if you stop and think about it. Yes, yes. Yes, I like I said, I figured there'd be people in this audience who would remember that cartoon, that old Bugs Bunny cartoon, and that is absolutely, I mean, all those great cartoons that Warner Brothers did back in the day were just daggone funny, but that one's in especially what it's combined with here is absolutely to me hysterical. See, even yeah, Kawan is I think a younger member of the audience. Absolutely, totally agrees with this. Oh my, yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. that, you know what, Kawan, I've always said you have a unique way of putting things, and I mean, there's no official title to this thing, okay, but you know what, that that title is great because it's so true. So true. Oh my gosh. And matter of fact, I'm bookmarking that one. I gotta save that tweet. That's just too daggone good. Anyway, moving on in the way of the merry memes. A lot of people have accused Donald Trump of not getting out of the White House enough. Uh, that he really, I mean, you see him traveling around, but does he really get out that much and actually talk to the average American? Well, I don't know about that, folks, because frankly, I think he's getting out more than people realize. For example, did you know that ever since they started this renovation project at the White House, he's made at least 73 trips to Home Depot? I mean, man, look, and it kind of makes sense. I mean, look, you're gonna have your hands on a lot of 2x4s, a lot of you know uh, drywall. You're going to get your hands on a lot of different things. So I could see making 73 trips to Home Depot. I'm not surprised by this at all. Not in the slightest. Nope, not at all. So there you go, folks. There you go. Now, for all these trips that Trump is making to Home Depot, believe it or not, a lot of progress. Well, yeah. I mean, you got excavation equipment. Yeah. Well, yeah. Good point. Good point. That's a great question, Gypsy. That really is. Well, and not just, and when you say everyone, I'm going to take it one step further. Why are the Democrats flipping out over this ballroom? I don't get it. I really don't. I mean, even some people, "Oh, I can't believe he's doing this to the White House." Folks, there have been renovations to the White House in one form or another over 200 plus years. This should not freak anybody out. But, well, yeah, and this is a great point. Eisenhower did extensive renovations to the White House back in the 1950s. Absolutely he did. So yeah, good point, TBA. Well, yeah, I mean, and you're not wrong. You're not wrong. There's a certain aspect of this that's very, very partisan. I don't disagree with you, but I will say this. Oh, I totally agree with this idea. I mean, the more the Clintons complain about this, if I were Trump, I'd do it. Heck, you could always change the name after Trump leaves office. But for all of the caterwauling and crying and belly aching that's being done, I'll give the contractors a lot of credit. They are moving very, very fast. I don't know if they're using 2 shifts or 3 shifts or whatever, but I tell you what, this construction project is really going fast. And matter of fact, we got some new photos of the addition that's going on to the east wing. And I tell you what, let me tell you, Trump and his people are absolutely doing double time on this. Look at that. I mean, man, I say you give it a few more weeks, and they're probably going to be done. I mean, at the rate they're going, they should probably be finished with this. I'd say for sure by the end of the year, because I mean, you got to factor in all the safety inspections. You got to factor in all of the permits. You got to factor in all that. So yeah, I'd say yeah, give it to probably the end of the year. They should be finished with it. And frankly, hey, it looks like it's going to be fantastic. So good job to Trump and his people for this. Absolutely good job. Totally. All right. What else? Well, y- you're not wrong, Scott. You're really not wrong. That's all I'm saying. So you're really not wrong, my friend. Now, again, I think look, if people want to get upset about this White House renovation, I get it. Um, but frankly, I don't think they should. I really don't. Well, I'll answer your question on this, Kawan. Private donations. There's no there is no according to all reports that I've seen, there is no taxpayer money involved in this whatsoever. Not a dime. It's all coming from private donations. So I saw your comment and I just wanted to respond to it. But I mean, look, for all the crying and caterwauling and the everything else, I mean, look, I do think I do think Trump kind of owes at least the attempt of trying to communicate with these people and make them understand, hey, look, there's no taxpayer money involved. We're building something that's very nice and frankly it's been needed. I mean, have you guys ever seen pictures of events that are held on the east side of the White House? They have to put up this giant tent. People are walking around on the grass and everything else, which is not good. Okay. Um, as I understand it, individuals from what I gather, and maybe companies, I don't know, but I've heard it's just primarily individuals. There might be some companies involved. Anyway, Trump does sort of owe at least an attempt at trying to communicate with these people to assuage their fears. However, I don't think his first attempt at trying to communicate about this is working out very well. Matter of fact, we do have some footage about Trump's first form of messaging to these folks that are worried about all the renovations. And here's what he had to say. Yeah. If I will say this, if this is what truly, if this was Trump's first attempt at trying to, you know, reach out to people on the other side and explain to them why they shouldn't be so upset about all this, I don't think this is going to help. Call me crazy, but I just don't see it happening. Yikes. Yikes indeed. Um Now, although that said, we ought to at least try and figure out what's making these people so upset about this. I mean, and to that end, now this I will give the Trump administration credit for. To that end, they are actually trying to offer, sit down meetings with people. I mean, for example, got a report here where the gentleman in the green shirt apparently is very upset about these White House renovations, and the doctor says, you know, on the doll here, just show me, where you hurt over this. Is it your head? Is it your heart? Is it your back? I mean, where does it hurt? So you know what? Like I say, I think this part of the outreach by the Trump administration to folks who are so upset about these renovations, I think this is a good idea. Well, they might be butt hurt. I don't know. Maybe it is their butt that's hurting over this whole thing. I have no idea. I'm just a guy behind a microphone in front of a camera just trying to give some commentary. I can't tell you what goes on in the minds of some of these people. Maybe they are butt hurt. I don't know. I'm just a guy trying to make it work. I don't know. Anyway. Now that said, not only is the Trump administration trying to figure out why people are so upset about this, and also they're trying to figure out a way how to not comfort's not the right word. They're trying to figure out how to get these people to calm down. The Trump administration apparently is taking it one step further. They're actually, true statement, they're doing scientific research. I know. I am as surprised as you are at this news. But the Trump administration is doing scientific research and trying to understand why it is that people are so upset with him. I mean, for example, and we've got some footage of some studies that are being done. I don't know if it's being done out of NIH laboratories or, if it's private companies doing this, but we got some footage of the research that's being done on behalf of the Trump administration to try to understand why it is people are so upset with him. Ladies and gentlemen, check this out.
Dormant until you give them a stimuli. Observe.
The only way we'll be able to come up with an antidote to TDS is to find patient zero.
J. Trump is now president of the United States.
Well, I think personally, I think that professor is absolutely right. They're never going to be able to get to the bottom of this until they figure out who patient zero is. And when they do that, then and only then are we going to get close to finding a cure for Trump derangement syndrome. Look, sometimes you just got to be purely scientific about this. I'm just saying. The Highness is in the house. Mwah, hello, you good-looking thing, you. That WWG1, that is a great question. And here, I'll take it one step further. If she does know, what does she think about all this? Now, do I think that, she's converted to conservatism? No, I don't. Probably not. And if she doesn't, you know what? That's entirely up to her. But you got to I'm like you kind of got to wonder, does she ever, I mean, surely after all these years, she has seen one or more memes with her image in it. You kind of got to wonder, what does she think about this? That's the part that cracks me up. But yeah, I think that's a very good question. Oh yeah, I totally. Well, that you could be right. Maybe she saw the meme for the first couple of times or her image in a meme and she's like, hey man, I'm going underground. I don't need this kind of attention. Yada, yada, yada. Do you think that's really true? Do you really think that's true? I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong. You might be absolutely right. But I would have a real hard time believing that she wouldn't even look at the memes. I don't know, man. She's more famous than Leave Britney Alone guy. Could be. Okay, so you really do think it's true? She does not even look at the memes. Okay. You might be right. You might be absolutely right. Well, now this is true, but still, I mean, even though they may not move them, so to speak, I mean, surely surely to goodness. Well, okay, yeah, you got to have a funny bone. I don't necessarily disagree with that either. But still, I don't know. I don't know, man. Well, no, this is definitely true. That's definitely true, my friend. Definitely. Well, people have been trying to figure out where the government shutdown is concerned. What is Chuck Schumer trying to accomplish in all this? Now, some people say that his stance is purely about politics. He wants to avoid a challenge from AOC when he's up for reelection the next time, what have you. Okay. I don't know. There might be something more nefarious involved in that. As a matter of fact, Schumer supposedly recently said that, yeah, there may be a certain amount of truth to this. I'm not saying, but I'm just saying. So you never quite know, man. You never quite know. Tough to say. Tough to say. Oh, wait. What's that? Huh? What's that? Wait a minute. Go away. Goodness me. All right. Back to you. Gosh. Technical difficulties this morning. Your host is not exactly hitting on all cylinders. That's all I'm saying. Oh, Chucky. What are we going to do with you? And finally, one last me. Well, you may be right. You may be absolutely right. Maybe it is the quality of the fedora. That's all. Dude, I'm already on my first cup of tea. Jeez. And in all seriousness, I think you're absolutely right. I think you're absolutely right. Now, one last meme, and then we'll get into the overarching topic of the morning. Some people say that Donald Trump is practically magical with the way he does things. I think that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but you know what? I'm willing to give people their opinion. May not agree with them, may not think they're right, they may not be right, but they have their right to their opinion. Some people will argue that Donald Trump is practically magical in terms of how he gets things done or what he's trying to do. And if that's the case, then this meme makes a whole lot of sense. Maybe this is the case. Maybe that's what Trump's trying to do. So you never quite know with DJT. Maybe he is trying to get the Democrats to support drug cartels. But we'll explain what that means here momentarily. All right. As always, I want to thank TBA. I want to thank WWG1. I want to thank Adam. I want to thank everybody who contributes to the Merry Memes. Without them, the show would be a lot less funny than what it is, even though I try to inject the humor as much as possible. So, as always, thank you for your contributions to the live stream. And remember, if you come across a meme that you think is really funny, or you find a story that you think we ought to talk about, hey, right down here, tag me on Twitter with it. And my DMs are open, by the way. Feel free to, drop me a message, tag me on a tweet, whatever. And the host reserves the right to use or not use your contribution, but more often than not, I'll put them in. So yeah, drop a tweet, drop a story, tell me something you want to talk about, and we'll do our best to try to get into it. All right, and with that, let us move on to our topic for the morning. And when I say topic, we're going to be looking at various pieces of news, but there's sort of one overarching theme. And it ties back into something, and I'm sure that when people look at this headline, or they looked at this headline for this live stream, the title of it, they said, that's a little bit unusual. Why is he saying that? Well, I keep getting the feeling more and more, and I don't think I'm necessarily alone and I don't think I'm necessarily wrong in this. I keep thinking that Trump has got trouble ahead here at home more than he might realize. But his trouble at home is caused in large part by all his troubles abroad. With that, let's get into some news. Got a story here from CBS. And by itself, it is one very big story, but it's part of a pattern that people are starting to see emerge. And we'll get to what that pattern is here momentarily. From CBS News, U.S. is sending aircraft carrier strike group to Latin America in major buildup. Article by Eleanor Watson and Melissa Quinn. We have the following. Dateline, Washington, D.C. The Pentagon said Friday that the U.S. is sending an aircraft carrier strike group to the waters off Latin America, an escalation that will dramatically increase the number of service members and ships dedicated to the Trump administration's campaign to counter narcotics traffickers. Sean Parnell, a Pentagon spokesman, said on Twitter that Secretary of War Pete Hegseth has, quote, directed the Gerald R. Ford Carrier Strike Group and embarked Carrier Air Wing to the U.S. Southern Command. Area of responsibility. Southern Command is responsible for the Caribbean, Central and South America, and the surrounding waters. Parnell said that the, quote, enhanced U.S. force presence will bolster U.S. capacity to detect, monitor, and disrupt illicit actors and activities that compromise the safety and the prosperity of the United States homeland and our security in the Western Hemisphere. The Gerald R. Ford is the Navy's newest and most advanced aircraft carrier, having been commissioned into service in 2017. At more than 1,100 feet long with a displacement of 100,000 long tons, the carrier is the largest in the world. It's powered by 2 nuclear reactors and can reach a top speed of 34.5 miles per hour, according to the Navy. The carrier is joined by 8 U.S. vessels that are already in the region, including 3 destroyers, 1 cruiser, a littoral combat ship, amphibious assault ship, and 2 transports. The Ford is currently in the Mediterranean, a defense official told CBS News, along with 3 destroyers. And there's a picture of the Gerald R. Ford. That is one pretty looking ship. Big. What's that line from The Hunt for Red October? In that scene where Alec Baldwin is showing James Earl Jones pictures of the Red October. I think it was James Earl Jones said, "Big son bitch." That is one big boat. Woo! Now, okay, I have questions, as you might expect. Why are we ramping up everything down in South America off the coast of Venezuela? I mean, 3 months ago, it was reported we were sending F-35s down to, I think it was Puerto Rico for care activities, exercises, that sort of thing. Now we've got an aircraft carrier being redeployed from the Mediterranean down to South America off the coast. We're putting a whole boatload of military artillery right off the coast of Venezuela. We're shooting boats out of the water. I have a legitimate question of the Trump administration. What the heck are you doing? Now, I know what the Trump administration is going to come back with. Well, they're running drugs into America, and we have a responsibility to do something about it. Okay, all right. I don't necessarily disagree with that premise. If a country, I'll put it this way. If the government of a sovereign nation is in cahoots with drug cartels to smuggle drugs into the United States, okay, that's a problem. And as far as I'm concerned, under the Monroe Doctrine, fine, do something about it. But this feels a little more, this to me is way past drug interdiction. Okay. We are shooting boats in international water, blowing up the boats and killing everybody. Well, hello, Miss Gina. Mwah. Hello, you good-looking thing, you. How you doing this morning? By the way, if you don't know, hey, Shorty here is Miss Gina. She is the producer for Sean or Third Railify. She's the producer for his live streams. Follow her on Rumble. Follow her wherever she's at. She is, I mean this in all sincerity. We'll get back to our topic here in a second. Oh, you made the trek to the Great North. Oh my goodness. Well, try the waffles. Do not complain. All right, here's some travel advice. Try the waffles. Don't complain about the maple syrup. Okay. And keep quiet about being an American. You know, they're touchy up there. No, I'm serious. I love Gina to death. She is an absolute sweetheart of a young lady. And seriously, follow her on Rumble, follow her on Twitter. And while you're at it, give that crazy Canadian Sean of Third Railify, give him a follow. But let me tell you something, in all seriousness, Gina does a wonderful job producing his show. Seriously, that live stream he does, if he didn't have her, I'm not going to say he'd fall apart, but it wouldn't be quite as smooth as it is. But yeah, glad to have you in the audience this morning, darling. All right. So getting back to this. The Trump administration is going to say we're doing our best to interdict drugs. Okay, fine. But you got to put this much military hardware down on the Caribbean? Off the coast of Venezuela? What the heck are we doing here? This doesn't feel like drug interdiction. This feels like the prelude to a regime change, maybe. And taking it one step further, I was talking a minute ago about the boats. We're shooting boats out of the water in international waters. And what's Trump's response to this? I played this the other day, but I'll play it again. Because frankly, I really couldn't believe it that he's being this brazen about it. Now, like I said, I will support Donald Trump when I think he gets it right, and I'll call him out when I think he's wrong. And on this, I just think he's flat wrong. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, let me put this up here. And as always, give me a sound check. Let me know if everything's coming through okay. But did you see this the other day?
Thank you, Mr. President.
Yeah.
A moment ago, you said that if Secretary Hegseth went to Congress and briefed them on the operations.
No, we will go, I said.
You will go. And
we
it would
will
be
go.
difficult for them to object.
I don't see any loss in going. No reason not to. You know, they'll always complain, oh, we should have gone. So we're going to definitely, I'd like to just tell you, let's go. We'll go.
And Mr.
We're going to
President-
tell them what we're going to do, and I think they're going to probably like it, except for the radical left lunatics.
And Mr. President, if you are declaring war against these cartels and Congress is likely to approve of that process, why not just ask for a declaration of war?
Okay. Now, before he answers this, okay, I think that's a very reasonable question. I do. Now, are the drug cartels a formal nation that, you would have that would do something that we declare war against? Well, I mean, look, I'm no lawyer, but no, they're not a formal nation. But if you're going to do this sort of thing, what we're doing right now, I would think that you'd want some kind of congressional authorization on it. Okay, so the question's fairly reasonable. Matter of fact, I'll back this up a few seconds, let you guys hear it again before he gives the answer. And it's the answer to me that, frankly, is the most shocking. Here we go.
Congress is likely to approve of that process. Why not just ask for a declaration of war?
Well, I don't think we're going to necessarily ask for a declaration of war. I think we're just going to kill people that are bringing drugs into our country. Okay? We're going to kill them. You know, they're going to be like dead. Okay.
So we're just going to blow people out of the water. No proof of evidence, no nothing. Well, okay, you're traveling up here. We're just going to blow you out of the water. I'm sorry. Not without me saying something about it. Now, granted, I'm just one guy and I'm sitting behind a microphone in front of a camera and I'm streaming over the internet and whatever, but I'm sorry. how about giving us some proof that these guys, number one, are actually running drugs? How about giving us proof? Oh, okay. Wait a minute. How do you know that? How do you know? How do I'm not saying I know with absolute certainty. I'm just saying I don't understand how they're doing. Well, they have the power to do it. Do they have the right to do it? I'm not so sure they've got the right to do it. I mean, we're literally blowing people out of the water. No explanation other than what we're being told by the government. No proof that they are actually guilty of that which, they're being claimed. And we're just going to keep on doing it. No congressional authorization, no whatever, just yeah, they're bringing drugs, boom. Huh? What? Now again, do I want to see drugs come into the United States? Of course not. I'm not trying to justify that. But it seems to me the Trump administration owes the American people an explanation. You're taking this course of action. Okay, we can debate the merits of whether that's right or wrong, but at least give me evidence that proves that the justification is somewhat plausible. Show me that these people are bringing drugs in. Prove it. Well, maybe this is where they're going with it. Maybe they're like, all right, one or two of these. Now we're up to 10. According to reports in the press, we just hit another one the other day. We're now up to 10 of these. Okay. No. This is not just CBS. This is not just CBS, respectfully. No, there's more than one news agency that's reported on this. It's not just CBS. News organizations all over the place. Well, okay. You have the right to that opinion. And again, I'm not saying I want drugs coming into the US, but what we're doing down there feels way more than just drug interdiction. Well, I'm not going to go so far as say it's a brain dead pretext, but if this is the pretext to something else, I'm like you. This one's awfully thin. By US propaganda standards, this is one of the thinnest justifications I've ever seen. But I'm not necessarily focusing on this as much as, okay, we've got that piece of news. We got an aircraft carrier going down off the coast of Venezuela. Then we got this going on, okay? Here's a headline for it. Did you know that Trump is currently en route, if he's not already there, he's en route to a trade trip overseas? Headline from NBC News. Trump heads to Asia with trade and tensions with Xi on the agenda. Topping the agenda at every stop is trade, with negotiators still ironing out the details of pacts expected to be signed on Trump's tour of Asia. Article written by Catherine Doyle. We have the following. Kuala Lumpur. President Donald Trump arrives in Malaysia on Sunday for his first visit to Asia since returning to office. A 3-nation tour through Malaysia, Japan, and South Korea that is expected to culminate in a meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping as tensions between the world's two biggest economies tick higher. Quote, the first message is Trump the peacemaker. The second is Trump the moneymaker, said Victor Cha of the Center for Strategic International Studies. Then, of course, with the meeting with China, I think what everybody's expecting is that there's probably not going to be a big trade deal, but there will be an effort to de-escalate or put a pause on the situation. Trade is expected to dominate this week. Aboard Air Force One on Friday, Trump said he would subsidize U.S. farmers if he did not reach a deal with China, and that he planned to discuss the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war with Xi, saying he'd like to see China, quote, help us out. The president also suggested he was angling for a meeting with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, even as the White House has said no meeting is planned. There's a lot of telephone services there, Trump said before urging reporters to put out the word. So, yeah. So now Trump is he's doing things on trade and he's traveling overseas, which again, that's the responsibility of a president. I don't necessarily have a problem with that. And I don't even necessarily have a problem with him trying to set up a meeting with Kim Jong-un. I think that's a pretty good idea myself. Got no problem with that. Pretty good idea. Then you got this headline. Then you got this. From the Associated Press, Trump ends trade talks with Canada over tariffs and add that Ontario Premier now says he will phase out. Article written by Will Weissert, Sing Min Kim, and Rob Gillies. We have the following. Dateline, Washington, D.C. President Donald Trump announced he's ending, quote, all trade negotiations with Canada because of a television ad sponsored by one of its provinces that used the words of former President Ronald Reagan to criticize tariffs, prompting the province's leader to pull the ad. The post on Trump's social media site Thursday night ratcheted up tensions with the U.S.'s northern neighbor after Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney said he plans to double his country's exports to countries outside the U.S. because of a threat posed by Trump's tariffs. White House officials said Trump's reaction was a culmination of the administration's long pent-up frustration about Canada's strategy in the trade talks. Later on Friday, Ontario Premier Doug Ford, whose province had sponsored the ad, said it would be taken down, though it is still running this weekend. Ford said after talking with Prime Minister Carney, he's decided to pause the advertising campaign effective Monday so that the trade talks can resume. Ford said they'd achieved their goal, having reached U.S. audiences at higher levels. Now, I'm going to do my best real fast to see if I can find this ad. I did not have it prepared this morning, but I might be able to get my hands on it real quick. Now, you might say to yourself, what is this ad that has got everybody so bent out of shape? Let me see if I can find it here. Yes, this might be it. Give me 1 second, folks. Now, this is a 1-minute ad that ran on Canadian television. Okay. And I'm pretty sure this is the ad that's being referred to. So this is what ran on Canadian TV. This is what got Trump so bent out of shape. But I'm going to explain why here in just a second.
When someone says, let's impose tariffs on foreign imports, it looks like they're doing the patriotic thing by protecting American products and jobs. And sometimes for a short while it works, but only for a short time. But over the long run, such trade barriers hurt every American worker and consumer. High tariffs inevitably lead to retaliation by foreign countries and the triggering of fierce trade wars. Then the worst happens. Markets shrink and collapse, businesses and industries shut down, and millions of people lose their jobs. Throughout the world, there's a growing realization that the way to prosperity for all nations is rejecting protectionist legislation and promoting fair and free competition. America's jobs and growth are at stake.
Now, you might say to yourself, well, those are Reagan's words. Now, you might not agree with the thrust of what the province of Ontario was doing. Well, I'm not sure if it was even running in America, to be perfectly honest. All I know is the ad is out there, and maybe Ontario was paying for it in American markets. I'm not sure. Oh no, it was Reagan. It was Reagan. Matter of fact, and I'll explain why everybody's so upset about this. I got a statement here from the Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation, and here's why everybody is so upset about this. This is their statement. The Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation and Institute learned that the government of Ontario, Canada, created an ad using selective audio and video of President Ronald Reagan delivering his radio address to the nation on free and fair trade, dated April 25th, 1987. The ad misrepresents the presidential radio address, and the government of Ontario did not seek nor receive permission to use and edit the remarks. The Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation and Institute is reviewing its legal options in the matter. We encourage you to watch President Reagan's unedited video on our YouTube channel. Well, okay. That absolutely true. Absolutely true. Matter of fact, let me see if I can find this real fast. Because I was watching Eric Hunley and Mark Grobert last night, which, by the way, fantastic live stream. Absolutely fantastic live stream. If you do not follow America's Untold Stories, which is the channel that they have together mutually, my friends, you are just missing out.
I assume they paid for some.
Mark, shut up. Hang on. I'm trying to see. Wait a minute. One moment, folks.
Who risk America's prosperity for the sake of...
Aha. Now, you might ask yourself, well, why is everybody so upset? Yeah, the Reagan Foundation. Yeah, well, and that's reason enough. Okay. But it's not so much, am I a part? No, unfortunately, I'm not. I should be. I ought to sign up for it, but I'm not. But I was watching their live stream last night, and they brought up a really, really, really good point. And what they're not telling you, or I should say, what Ontario did not do with their ad, is play you the rest of Reagan's comment. Okay. And I want to pop this up on screen, and you'll begin to understand what's going on here better than I could ever say it. So with that, listen to this. Whoop, wait a minute.
Yeah. Okay. This is why there's a problem with what they did. And it's pretty sick. Apparently the Reagan library or group, somebody typed with Reagan, got a hold of Trump, and they said they're taking Reagan's words and they're playing games with it.
Oh no.
Here is what actually...
Now, it hasn't always been easy. There are those in the Congress, just as there were back in the 30s, who want to go for the quick political advantage, who risk America's prosperity for the sake of a short-term appeal to some special interest group, who forget that more than 5 million American jobs are directly tied to the foreign export business, and additional millions are tied to imports. Well, I've never forgotten those jobs, and on trade issues, by and large, we've done well. Well, I've never forgotten those jobs, and on trade issues, by and large, we've done well. In certain select cases, like the Japanese semiconductors, we've taken steps to stop unfair practices against American products.
What steps would those be?
But we've still maintained our basic long-term commitment to free trade and economic growth. So, with my meeting with Prime Minister Nakasone and the Venice Economic Summit coming up, it's terribly important not to restrict the president's options in such trade dealings with foreign governments. Unfortunately, some in the Congress are trying to do exactly that. I'll keep you informed on this dangerous legislation because it's just another form of protectionism, and I may need your help to stop it. Remember, America's jobs and growth are at stake. Until next week, thanks for listening, and God bless you.
Now you begin to understand why Now you begin to understand why the Reagan Presidential Foundation and Institute and the Trump administration are so bent out of shape about this. I mean, that is as blatant as it gets. And yeah, for my part, I think the Trump administration was right to call him out on this. Like, look, you took our president's words and you absolutely took them out of context to try to benefit you in your disputes about trade with us. Okay. Again, no problem with that. And I'm not necessarily even focusing on per se the in the weeds aspect of the story. It's just I want to show the headline. Trump ends trade talks with Canada over what Ontario does. So we've got a carrier group going down into Venezuela. We've got, a trade trip to overseas. We've got a possible meeting with a North Korean dictator on the taps, possibly. We've got a meeting with a Chinese dictator for sure. And now we're cutting off discussions about trade in Canada. Then we go back to one of our favorite hot spots in the world, which is Ukraine. And you got things going on there. Lord only knows what nonsense is happening there. But something significant happened recently that, people need to be made aware of. And with that, I take you to a clip from Steve Bannon's War Room, the foreign correspondent, Ben Harwell, who's stationed out of Rome, and Bannon were talking. Check this out.
So President Trump, and he's very upfront yesterday in the bilateral, I think again this morning, he's tried to, he says he has conversations with Putin. He thinks things are going in the correct direction. It's just not in Alaska, but he has these phone conversations, thinks it's going the right direction, and then nothing happens. Lavrov kind of blew off Marco, Secretary of State Rubio.
Hold up right there. I'm not so sure Lavrov blew off Rubio as much as Rubio blew off Lavrov. I'm gonna take an aside here for just 1 second. I remember very early on, Christian Watson was very nervous about Marco Rubio as Secretary of State. I was more optimistic at the time. Looking back on it, and now knowing everything that I know going forward, Christian, I owe you an apology. I will say it here and now, brother. You were right, and I was wrong. Rubio is starting to worry me immensely at state. Why do I get the feeling more and more Trump wants to do one thing and he's being either undercut or badly influenced by an unrepentant neocon in Marco Rubio? Just saying. Anyway, back to the video clip.
So we're not going to Hungary to sit down and set things right here with Putin and President Trump in a room with Orban to try to figure this thing out. It's actually heated up much more. We got some pretty serious sanctions. Medvedev has said, hey, these are acts of war. But you actually think something has happened, transpired over the last 24 hours that's even more serious than that. The floor is yours. Ben Harnwell from Rome.
Hey, Steve. Well, look, let's pick up from what you were just saying in your question, your opener. The statement from Dmitry Medvedev is that what President Trump, both with the sanctions on the oil, but also the cancelling of the bilateral in Hungary, which was actually cancelled by Russia, not President Trump. He said that that's a declaration of war. Now, Medvedev is probably one of the most hardline of the key Russian political players. That is absolutely for sure. And he makes President Putin in comparison look quite like a moderate, and he represents that hardline nationalist sentiment politically. But he is incredibly trusted by President Putin. How trusted by President Putin is he? Well, when Putin, for constitutional reasons, was required to stand down from the presidency a few years ago and assume exactly the same real powers as prime minister. He handed over the notional office of the presidency to Medvedev himself. So he's definitely on the hard right flank. And that's what he said. He said that President Trump has departed from his talk about wanting to be a peacekeeper, and he's made an open declaration of war, and that Russia now has the pretext to respond to that accordingly. I know that the US press is leading on the sanctions, and to some extent on Medvedev's comments. I don't think that's the big issue, Steve. I think the big story really on Ukraine over the last 24 hours is the fact that President Trump has authorized the use by Zelensky of long-range missiles into Russia. They were used yesterday to attack the military plant in Bryansk. Now, Trump has said no, POTUS has said no to supplying the Tomahawks, and the actual missiles used on this occasion yesterday were the Shadow Storm missiles provided by the UK, but the targeting was provided by US intelligence, and with President Trump's permission.
Okay, I'm going to stop it right there. The clip goes on longer than that, and I apologize for its length. But now we've got Trump, according to reports, and again, anything that comes out of the media, be it on the right or the left, I take with a certain grain of salt, but it is being reported Trump's authorized the use of long-range missiles into Russia. Not our missiles, we're not giving them Patriots, but we don't mind giving them the intelligence to target the things with. On and on and on it goes. A couple of more here. Now, I've done a whole hodgepodge of stories here, okay? And I freely admit that. And I'm doing something a little different than what I'm normally akin to doing. But I've gone through these 4 or 5 stories to set up a question. Where is the focus from the Trump administration on the everyday American? I'll ask the question again. Where is the focus by the Trump administration on the average everyday American? Now, don't get now before you say anything, just hear me out. Okay? I don't dispute that in his heart of hearts, I think Trump cares about the American people. I really think he does. Maybe more so than any president that we've had in a long time. I think his instinct goes there. I think, however, that there's not enough focus on the concerns of the average everyday American. Where was it real early on? God, let me find this quote again. It wasn't so much a quote as much as it was a comment. Where was it? Hang on, I gotta find this. It was from Kawan. Yeah, here it is. Who can afford to shop these days? I've seen comments like this. We had a discussion the other night with Dr. Robin McCutcheon, and I saw comments in the chat about the price of goods in particular areas. I'm not going to call out anybody's names because I didn't ask him in advance if I could revisit the quote. But, comments about commodities and what their prices are at grocery stores in their local area. The price of gasoline is fluctuating up and down, which, by the way, I didn't even get into the story about us putting sanctions on 2 major Russian oil companies. Where is the focus on the everyday concerns of the average American citizen? I mean, Kawan asked the question better than anybody. Who can afford to go shopping these days? I went to the grocery store yesterday after work, and I bought myself a handful of things. Okay. Now, I will freely admit, I have the tendency, which comes along with Appalachian heritage, of buying one item, maybe more of it than what I need. Because I'm either going to put it away on the shelf or I'll put it back because I know I'm going to use it later. Okay. So I get that. But the handful of things that I bought cost me over $50. Okay. Full disclosure, I'll just tell you that up front. And I'm sitting here going, I can remember when I could have gotten this for cheaper. Now, would it have been a huge amount cheaper? Maybe, maybe not. But I'm sitting here going, okay, I know inflation's supposedly slowing, but when can we get to the point where and again, we talked about this the other night. When does the average American start seeing this in their personal economy? And even an economist as good as Dr. Robin McCutcheon's like, yeah, it's going to depend. The worry that I have is that the Trump administration is about to repeat history. What am I getting at? I want some of you guys who are old enough to remember to think back to the presidency of George Herbert Walker Bush. It was just after the Gulf War. Just after the Gulf War. And he had this approval rating that was sky high. And George Herbert Walker Bush is doing this thing on foreign policy and that thing on foreign policy. And in the meanwhile, a recession starts slowly creeping in. And when it finally caught up to him, Bush got tagged, perhaps unfairly, with the perception that he was out of touch with the concerns of the average everyday American. I'm not saying it's necessarily the same here, okay? But it's similar. Not so much that Trump doesn't care about the average concerns of the average everyday American, but he's not focusing enough on it. Now, are there things that are happening abroad that affect us at home? Certainly. The Ukraine war does. Why? Because our money and our military is pumping the whole thing up. Okay. All right. And I'll grant you this one, WWG1. I will grant you this one. Okay. I'll grant you that. Don't disagree with that in the slightest. But what I'm talking about here is the political calculation. Trump is spending so much time on matters of foreign policy, which again, you could make an argument that's the constitutional design of our system. Okay. Yes, he's the chief executive at home, but he is also the chief executive abroad. He represents the United States. I get that. But the perception is going to start setting in, if it's not already happening, that Trump is spending so much time on matters of foreign policy, he's not spending nearly enough time at home on the concerns of the average American. Now, I think Trump is trying to do a yeoman's work, and in some cases is doing a masterful job on trying to get illegal immigration at home under control. Are we deporting as many people out of the country as I'd like to at this point? Heck no. But he's trying to get a handle on it. Okay. But to the average everyday American, how much of this news about what Trump is doing overseas, I forget who it was who came up with the term. He called it the "what about us" voter. I mean, it may have been Rich Barris. What about us? When are our concerns going to be addressed? And I'm getting really worried about this. I am. As a matter of fact, I mean, I got a story here going to the question of, the concerns of the average American. I got a story here from justthenews.com. If you guys heard about this deal, well, hang on, before I do that, let me answer a couple of things here. I saw Patty asked, do you think self-serving business dealings overseas? No, I don't think necessarily, Patty, I don't think Trump's necessarily engaging in some kind of self-serving business dealing like the Bidens were doing. That's not my point. My point is, he is either by his own choosing or by the circumstances put in front of him, focused so much on things going on outside the U.S. that some people are going to think, hey, he's not focused nearly enough about what's going on here inside the United States. And I think that's a legitimate concern. I do. Now, will we know? Well, we'll find out, I suppose. You know. Oh, and the $38 trillion in debt most certainly is not helping. You know. Yeah. Severely criticized for looking in. And that's, I'm glad you brought that one up. That was one example that was used by a lot of people about why it is that, Herbert Walker Bush people felt like he was out of touch. He went to the grocery store as part of, I guess, a campaign stop or whatever. And, he's showing, groceries being scanned by, a machine. He's like, wow, this is really amazing. Like he'd never seen it before, which quite possibly he hadn't. Okay. All right. I grant you that. I guess, and maybe I'm worrying for nothing here, but I don't know that I am. And I'll tell you why here in a second. Let me show you guys a story from justthenews.com. Trump's baffling beef boogaloo. Article by Ben Whedon of justthenews.com. The Trump administration has tried to throw an economic lifeline to the government of Argentinian President Javier Milei, whose economic reforms have led to considerable tumult there. U.S. farmers aren't too happy about it. All right, so what the heck is going on here? This article by Ben Whedon. President Donald Trump is going to have to do some fancy footwork after his move to purchase beef from Argentina, though he hopes the purchases will stabilize the economy of an allied power and lower costs of the average American consumer. Domestic ranchers are challenging his commitment to America first and complaining that his Department of Agriculture has done little to help them address the supply problem stateside. The Trump administration has sought to extend an economic lifeline to the government of Argentinian President Javier Milei, whose economic reforms have led to considerable tumult. The Treasury Department has committed to a $40 billion bailout, with the idea of purchasing beef from Argentina remains a mere suggestion. Quote, the Trump administration and his cabinet are working every day to lower prices for consumers, a USDA spokesperson told Just the News. While prices for other proteins such as eggs, pork, and chicken have declined in recent months, beef prices remain elevated. This is due to the perfect storm of sustained increase in consumer demand for beef, coupled with a prolonged decrease in the supply of live cattle. And yeah, we talked about this the other night with Dr. McCutcheon. Shortly before the end of the Biden administration, they culled out X amount of beef and killed it off because they thought there was some kind of virus, which, okay, you can get over that, but it takes some time to do it. I don't dispute that at all. But the farmers may have a legitimate gripe here. Now, I want to go back to the article. Hang on one second. Excuse me. All right, back to the article. Theoretically, increasing the supply of beef in the market would lower prices and ease the burden on consumers who complain about rising grocery costs. But American cattle ranchers, a generally reliable Republican constituency, feel betrayed by the mere suggestion and have urged him to instead fix the problem stateside by revamping the Department of Ag. Quote, we understand that beef prices are high and we admire your concern for all Americans, but this is not the fault of the American producer, cattle producer Meriwether Farms wrote in a public letter to Trump. This is the fault of politicians who have allowed BRICS-aligned entities to dominate the meat market that participate in price fixing and who also continually lie to their consumers. On top of all this, there is only chaos coming from the Department of Ag. There is no true guidance, mixed messaging, and a copious amount of photo ops, they continued. There is no one to trust over there that truly understands the issues and isn't bought out or aligned with the big industries. Meriwether Farms is far from alone in that sentiment. Indiana cattle rancher Todd Armstrong told CNN, quote, what frustrates me about this whole move is President Trump ran on America first. I don't see anything in this that puts America first. It's hypocritical. Republican lawmakers, for their part, have relayed these concerns from their constituents to the same effect. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, Republican of Georgia, for instance, reshared the Meriwether Farms letter saying, "I'm hearing the same sentiment in my district. At this point, help Americans only," she insisted earlier in the week. Quote, "What we're hearing from Montana ranchers and American ranchers and farmers generally is, give us a chance to do this with American products, with American producers first, before we turn to our foreign market," said Tim Sheehy, Republican senator from Montana. A little further into that article, on the whole, cattle ranchers collectively seem to want aid in meeting consumer demand and potentially lowering costs from Washington directly. To be sure, the Ag Department has worked to improve American market access to other countries. So, I mean, and this is just one example of it. This is just one example. I mean, you got a situation, 2 to 3 years to regrow the herds. True that. So yeah, and the farmers are suffering horribly. Well, okay, fair point indeed. That's not unfair. So the farmers have got a little bit to lighten up on. But again, this is just one area. And again, maybe not the best example of what I'm getting at here, but the worry that I've got, and again, it may be totally unfounded. I could be completely wrong in this, but I'm starting to wonder if we're not getting into a situation, where Trump is going to be perceived, right or wrong, of focusing more on what's going on outside the U.S. than what's going on the inside, to the detriment of the average American. Exporting lots of beef, they can't sell it cheaper here in America due to regulations of meat products. Well, and the article goes on to mention this. And on this, I think this is a classic example. This is a situation where regulation by the USDA and the Department of Agriculture is probably causing the price to go up. The farmers are looking at the Trump administration, go, hey, we need to do something about lowering these costs so we can sell our beef inside the U.S. What's the Trump administration do? They go out and do a deal with Argentina to buy beef. Now, again, there's a lot of factors going on inside this story. I mean, like we said, it's going to take 2 or 3 years to rebuild the cattle herds inside the United States to get, a healthy supply of beef. But there are things that the federal government could do, at least right now, until that happens, that lowers the cost. Instead of doing that, they're doing a deal with Argentina. True, but in this case, he needs to worry. And the reason he needs to worry is in about 13 months, there's going to be a midterm election. And I'd say right now it's 50-50. I'd say right now it's 50-50 on whether Republicans hold the House. And everybody needs to remember back. Oh, no. I'm not talking about price controls. Absolutely not. They've never worked. They never have. I agree with you completely. I'm not talking about price controls. But can we not take a look at what's going on inside the USDA and the Department of Ag? If there are regulations that are helping drive the cost higher, or it makes it prohibitive for American farmers to not sell their beef inside the U.S., can we do something about those things and maybe help lower the costs until such time as we can get American cattle herds back up to a supply side level that actually would naturally lower the cost? That's what I'm saying. Oh, totally. That's been needed for years, but not while you got Rollins as Secretary of Ag right now. But this is, again, the reason that you got 13 months till the midterm elections. It is 50-50 on whether or not they hold the House. And remember what happened the first time? Trump doesn't hold the House. The Democrats are going to come back with an absolute vengeance. Investigations, subpoenas, probably another impeachment trial. And not just Trump. They'll go after his cabinet. They will absolutely go after his cabinet. They'll go after RFK Jr. for sure. Probably Hegseth is a close second. And on it goes. Trump's never really worried about what people say about him. I grant you that. But by the same token, in this case, he needs to worry about it because he's not that far away from a huge potential hurdle that if he can't get over it, he's sunk. And not only does it sink him, but any potential successor who might be able to hold the White House and keep going some of the things that he started. Well, sadly, my friend, you might be absolutely right. You might be absolutely right. Which gets us to some of the elections that are about to take place in about 7 to 10 days. Here's where we're at. In Virginia, according to the Real Clear Politics average of polls, let me enlarge this to make it a little bit easier for y'all to read. Abigail Spanberger, Miss CIA herself, according to the average of polls, has a lead of about 7 points on Winsome Sears. In New Jersey, Mikey Sherrill has a lead of about 4 points on Jack Ciccarelli. Now, could these polls be wrong? Absolutely. No, not necessarily. I'm not necessarily trusting them. But what I'm saying is this. At least there's a chance, or could be a chance, they pick up the Republicans pick up one of the governorships. I would have argued they might have had a chance to pick up 2 if Winsome Sears had been a better candidate. But now they might wind up losing both. And not just the governor's races either. I think New York City is a foregone conclusion. I think Zamdani is going to be mayor. And what that means for the Big Apple and the rest of the country, I don't even want to think about. Well, now this is a good way of putting it. I don't know that I'd necessarily call it protecting his legacy, but he needs to protect his flank, protect some of his things at home. We'll see. We will see. Yeah. Oh, and talking about Virginia, did you guys hear about what they're trying to do with redistricting? Hang on a second. Let me see if I can find this real fast. The Democrats are trying to put together a redistricting effort to go on the ballot at the very 11th hour here in Virginia, not here in Virginia, but next door over in Virginia. This is what the map would look like if they get what they want. Basically, they would redistrict Virginia in such a way that of the 11 congressional seats, 9, sorry, of the 9 congressional seats, 7 of them would belong to the Democrats. Look at that. Just look at that. Absolutely crazy. Hang on a second. Let me pop this up here just to give you guys some context. Virginia lawmakers in Virginia have launched a special legislative session on Monday to pursue a constitutional amendment that would enable the redrawing of the state's congressional districts, potentially securing 2 or 3 additional seats before the midterm elections. This initiative responds to Republican-led efforts in states like Texas and Missouri amid criticisms of Republicans who view it as a violation of the 2020 voter-approved nonpartisan system. Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's worse than a Rorschach test. It's a Rorschach test on acid. Well, true that. But yeah, I just think Trump has got some problems at home and he needs to start focusing on them. And not just because they're legitimate problems of the average American, but because they could cause him a political problem if he doesn't start paying attention to it. But anyway, all right, it's about 12 noon, and I want to move on to some other stories. Before I do, let me do a real quick commercial. If you've happened upon this live stream and you're sitting there going, who is that devilishly handsome fella in the hat and the vest? Well, let me introduce myself to you. My name is Brian Trippett, and I am known in social media as the Front Porch Conservative. If you like what we're doing here, discussing the issues, giving your take, bringing some humor to it in one form or another, well, then why don't you go ahead and do me a favor? Subscribe to my channel on YouTube and Rumble. And while you're at it, why don't you go ahead and hit the bell for notifications and do me one more favor. Hit the thumbs up button and leave a comment in chat on this live stream. I would really appreciate it. Now, with that, we're going to shift gears. Yeah, well, this is what I'm afraid of. This is what I'm afraid of. Somebody's telling him everything's fine. And I just, I don't know, man. I do not know. I don't know if it's her by herself or a bunch of people around him and he's making the mistake of listening to him. Anyway, we're going to move on to a section of the program called HodgePodge Stew. These are stories, the HodgePodge, are stories that maybe they're not the biggest thing that's coming or going right now, but they're stories that are interesting enough that I want to talk about them. And this first one is a little bit off topic for this live stream or this channel, but it's interesting to me yet nonetheless. Did you guys hear about the FBI's big arrest the other day involving NBA coaches, players, and an illicit gambling ring? I find this one to be fascinating on so many levels. I got a story here from Outkick.com. NBA's Billups Rozier arrested in FBI probe involving alleged prop bets, poker rings, and mob ties. Officials detail the cheating allegations and pending charges in a press conference. Articles written by, who wrote this? Mark Harris of Outkick. We've got the following. Basketball Hall of Famer Chauncey Billups, Miami Heat guard Terry Rozier, and former player and coach Damon Jones are among 30 individuals arrested Thursday morning and indicted in a sweeping criminal investigation into illegal gambling and sports rigging that also involve 4 of the 5 mafia families. Oh, this is straight crazy. Listen to this. The charges were unveiled at a press conference in Brooklyn where FBI Director Kash Patel and representatives of the Department of Justice and the New York Police Department laid out details of an operation that spanned 11 states, resulted in 34 arrests, and involved in tens of millions of dollars. The FBI director said the historic fraud included, quote, multiple NBA players and coaches who allegedly took advantage of their positions of power to rig gambling systems for their own benefit, eventually funneling money to La Cosa Nostra, enriching some of the most notorious criminal networks in the world. Rigged poker, illegal poker games. Billups, the current coach of the Portland Trail Blazers, who was inducted into the Hall of Fame last year, and Jones allegedly participated in a scheme involving rigged illegal poker games. They face charges of wire fraud conspiracy and money laundering. Federal authorities launched an investigation dubbed Operation Zen Diagram into a nationwide gambling ring involving members of the Bonanno, Gambino, Lucchese, and Genovese families, which allegedly defrauded victims out of millions of dollars. The FBI said the proceeds were often converted into cryptocurrency to avoid being detected by law enforcement. Officials stated the poker games involve cheating devices, such as rigging shuffling machines as well as x-ray machines that could read face-down cards on the table. Holy cow. Operation Zen Diagram overlapped with several investigations dubbed Nothing But Bet, involving a probe into fixed NCAA basketball games. Roger's arrest is tied to gambling-involved NBA games during which he allegedly manipulated his statistics so co-conspirators could win prop bets. During a Thursday press conference, New York State Police Commissioner Tish, I should say, presented one alleged instance involving Roger from March of 2023 when he was a member of the Charlotte Hornets. Quote, Roger let others close to him know that he planned to leave the game early with a supposed injury. Using that information, members of the group placed more than $200,000 in wagers on his under statistics, Tish alleged. Roger exited the game just after 9 minutes, and those bets paid off, generating tens of thousands of dollars in profit. The proceeds were later delivered to his home, where the group counted the cash. Holy cow! Oh my. Whoa. Roger and 5 other defendants are facing charges of conspiracy to commit bank and wire fraud. Jones, along with his alleged involvement in the separate poker scheme case, was also indicted as part of the sports rigging investigation. He's alleged to have shared inside information, non-public information, to help place fraudulent bets. Holy cow. Now, all right, I will freely tell you up front that there are other channels and social media folk who can speak to this stuff way better than I can. But it's been known for a long time that there's been a certain amount of fraud in sports. And I could just hear some of y'all on the other side of this camera right now going, yes, Brian, and in other news, water is wet. Okay, you're right. But this is the first time I can ever remember criminal indictments and investigations and arrests being done for the manipulation of sporting events. Now, this sort of thing does happen. I mean, just off the top of my head, the great cheating scandal of the 1919 World Series when the White Sox threw the World Series to the Cincinnati Reds. Rigging of games does happen. Some people would argue that the NFL and the NBA are notorious for rigging certain things to be certain ways, shall we say. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But this is a whole other level of animal. And going back to that live stream we were referring to earlier, America's Untold Stories, Mark Grobert made a fantastic observation, and I hadn't even thought about this. Do not be surprised if out of this story comes a connection to the Chinese Communist Party. Many people will argue that the NBA in particular sold out to Communist China a long time ago. As far as the influence Communist China has, the money that they have poured into the NBA, etc. Do not be surprised if in part, or maybe even in whole, if this scheme doesn't wind its way back to China. Now, I know you're sitting there saying, oh, that's crazy talk. I'm just saying it. Possible. Just possible. Well, okay. You got a fair point. You've got a point. You know. So one way of waking people to, yeah, true. So was anyone deported over this? I don't think, not that I'm aware of. Not that I am aware of, but I tell you what, like I said, this is the first time I can remember I can remember a crackdown this big. It just and the fact that 4 of the major crime families in America are involved in this. Holy cow! See who did that? Let me see. Who did they say was? Let me find it here. The Bonanno, Gambino, Lucchese, and Genovese crime families, or allegedly. Jesus, that's amazing. That is just amazing to me. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Well, I understand. I do. There's very little in the way of sports that I watch anymore, with the exception of college football. And even then, college football to me is it's definitely not what it once was. Too much money, too much of a lot of things. But college football is perhaps one of the last, I won't say pure. Pure is not the right word to use when describing college football. I'll just put it this way. College football for me is one of the few things left. Oh, I know. When that happens, it's like, what's the point? What's the point? But yeah, to me, college football is one of those things that's still left. I mean, I will watch the NBA gritting my teeth. Now, here's what I'm getting at by gritting my teeth. I will watch it if my historically favorite team, the Boston Celtics, are involved. If the Celtics are playing, I'll watch, just for the fact that I'm an old Celtics fan going back to the 80s with Larry Bird and all those cats, okay? But I will watch with gritted teeth. Oh, yes, sir. I am a member of both of those, actually. I don't post on there, but I am a member. But the reason that I watch the NBA with gritted teeth is I just hate the quality of the play. I really do. Now, some people are going to listen to that and say, "Oh, but these athletes are faster, they're stronger, they're more athletic, and they have no fundamental skills whatsoever. None. There's no defense. Everything is three-point shooting. There's just no fundamental skill to the game anymore. It's no more than street ball." I will never forget the legendary Red Auerbach was asked the question once. He said, and this was probably in the 1990s, they asked him. They said, if you took one of your Celtics teams from the 50s and 60s and you put them up against the athletes today, who'd win? He said, my Celtics. Oh, well, you're just saying that because you're the old Celtics coach. He said, no. He said, that's not it. My players played better fundamental basketball than athletes today. He said we would win. He said we'd win most, if not all of them, every game played. And he's right. That's why I say I watch the NBA with gritted teeth. It just frustrates me to no end to watch an NBA game anymore. Truly. But yeah, this story, keep an eye on this one. This has the potential to go places in big way. And speaking of big ways and big things, big Letitia James has pled guilty, but she's got some tricks up her sleeve. From the BBC, we've got the following. Letitia James pleads not guilty in mortgage fraud case. Article by Madeline Halpert, we've got the following. New York Attorney General Letitia James pleads not guilty to federal charges of bank fraud and making false statements to a financial institution. James appeared in the U.S. District Court in Norfolk in Virginia on Friday during a brief hearing in which her legal team asked for a speedy trial. Speaking outside the court after the arraignment, in which a defendant is normally read the charges against them, James accused U.S. President Donald Trump of using the justice system as a vehicle of retribution against her. Oh, the irony that drips off that statement. Absolutely drips off of that statement. It's just incredible. The federal government alleges that James bought a 3-bedroom home in Norfolk using a mortgage loan that required her to use the property as secondary residence and did not allow for shared ownership or, quote, time sharing. The indictment also claims the property was not occupied or used by James as a secondary residence, but instead used as a rental investment property and was being rented to a family of 3. The, quote, misrepresentation allowed James to obtain favorable loan terms that would not have been available for an investment property, prosecutors claim. James is, now here's where I say Letitia's got some tricks up her sleeve. James's legal team also said in court filings this week that they plan to challenge the appointment of U.S. Attorney Lindsay Halligan to James's case. Trump appointed Ms. Halligan, a former personal attorney, to oversee the case after another U.S. prosecutor, Eric Siebert, resigned. Siebert reportedly was ousted after he told the Justice Department that he had not found sufficient evidence to charge James. James's attorney was also filing a motion to dismiss the case on the grounds that it is vindictive. So you're going to file a motion arguing that the case is vindictive. Good luck with that, Letitia, considering that's what you did to Donald Trump. Yeah, I think this is true too. I think this is very true. Very, very true. So there's that going on. All right. We're going to end the program with a couple of things that WWG1 sent me. And I put them at the end because, well, not that they're bad. They're actually pretty good. But the music portion of this might get me in trouble. But these are actually pretty good by way of memes. So with that, we're going to pop these up on screen and let you guys see them. I hope you guys get a kick out of it. Here's the first one. Yeah, that is truly, truly some epic moves. Oh, I know. This is going to get me in trouble. I'll deal with it. Don't worry. I'll deal with it. One more in that vein. So give me 1 second here, folks. Oh, wait a minute. Where'd you go? Oh, there you are. One more in that vein. And again, I know I'll probably wind up having to clip this out. But have you ever been somewhere and you look upon a situation and you realize that one's being checked out? Well, I think you're going to understand what I'm talking about when you see this. And with that, enjoy. Yeah, happened to all of them.
I wanna hold them like they do in Texas, please. Fold them, let them hit me, raise it, baby, stay with me. I love it. Love game, intuition, play the cards with spades to start. And after he's been hooked, I'll play the one that's on his heart. I'll get him hard, show him what I got. I'll get him hard, show him what I got. Can't read mine, no, we can't read.
Okay, for some of y'all in that video, I just have one thing to say. Your side eye game is not really good. Just saying. All right. Folks, that is the end of everything. Yeah, really. If looks could kill, there you go. Here you go. You caught that too? It's me. Yeah, I'm with you on that. I know. YouTube's going to get me. I'm going to get in trouble with YouTube over those. But you know what? They're worth it. They're worth it. You guys are always good. All right. We're going to bring this train into the station. I want to thank you guys so much for being here. We've had a ton of fun this morning, and thank you for being here for Front Porch Brunch. We will be back this week. For sure, we're going to be back on Tuesday at 7 p.m. for the newsroom. So in the meanwhile, you guys have yourselves a great weekend. And now, sir, you're not being dragged to the grocery store. Mrs. TBA is, offering you an opportunity for the two of you to do an activity together. She's not dragging you anywhere, please. Anyway, TBA is like, anyway, I've had a lot of fun this week. You guys have been an absolute blast. And as always, have yourself a great weekend. Spend some time with the people that you love. Tell them that you love them. And charge up your batteries. We'll be back next week doing it all over again. And remember the words of that great American philosopher as we start to leave the electronic front porch. Tom T. Hall, as he always said, it's faster horses, younger lovers, older whiskey, and more money. I love you guys very much. Thank you for everything you mean to this channel. We'll catch you guys later. Bye-bye.